So I did it to myself again. In 2022, I went into Bones and All completely blind. Now, I've gone into Brandon Cronenberg's Infinity Pool without reading any synopsis or seeing a trailer. It was an experience, but was it a good one? James and Em Foster are enjoying an all-inclusive beach vacation in the fictional island of Tolqa when an accident exposes the resort's twisted subculture, leading to unimaginable horrors. Even though I'm a little bit late to the party with this, I'm still going to stay away from spoilers so that if you choose to go and see it, you can experience the same things that I did. Now, Brandon Cronenberg, son of director David Cronenberg, he follows up his very dark film Possessor with Infinity Pool. Now, first, the cinematography in this is stunning, and a lot of it's shot and designed to put us on edge. From one of the opening shots, we watch the landscapes transition as the camera moves forward, but at the same time, it's rotating slowly, with most of what's visible actually being upside down from how it would normally appear. Now, this worked to make me a bit queasy because it's just not a short sequence. And really, that's something that Cronenberg follows throughout most of the film. He takes something that can make you a bit uncomfortable, and then he extends it so that it should make you uncomfortable. In addition to those turning shots, there are so many scenes that are very up close to the actors, extremely intimate, but in an invasive sort of way, where we just see portions of their face, and not all of it's always in focus. Then there are some other shots which were some of my favorites, but they feature the actor or subject small within the frame, allowing the surroundings to become enveloping and almost forcing our attention to the smallness of whatever subject is solitary within the frame. And while there are a lot of muted colors at play, there are times where rich blues and deep reds become prominent. Then these are even sometimes mixed with neon and strobing lights. That's very discombobulating and unnerving, but it effectively continues the mood of sensual discomfort. The acting in this is stellar. There are several supporting performances that all work in tandem to really create this very twisted story, but Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgard, they absolutely kill it in this. Now, first with Skarsgard. He comes across as shy, slightly timid, but also sort of an a-hole because his wife suggests doing something very early on in the film, and he's not very keen on it. But when a perfect stranger suggests the exact same thing, well, he's all over doing that. But it goes also beyond those initial reactions to his character. I mean, he's a malleable person. There were very few times when I felt like he was ever able to really be his own person. He went along with ideas, and then he begins to embrace them, gaining confidence and never realizing that in the grand scheme, he's really like a villager of the island. His status, it's very subjective. In the course of the story, Skarsgård needs to convey fear, excitement, rage, defeat, hubris, even resolve. And every time he convincingly delivers. And many of those come about just through his eyes. He was very expressive in the emotion that was captured in his eyes. I mean, creating a character who at times I felt compassion or maybe at least empathy for, and then other times, utter disgust. And he paired so well with Mia Goth. Good gravy. Goth is spectacular in this. She's flirty, but also enigmatic, teasing seemingly without regard for anybody else's feelings. Now, there's an innocence to her eyes, but there's also this sinister vibe that comes from her, so it's hard to really know where to land, at least in the beginning. I loved her interactions with Skarsgård because their dynamic is intense and dangerous feeling. There's a point, too, where Goth flips a switch and the expression that she gives is terrifyingly unhinged, but it's also strangely funny. Now, there's a comedic effect to what occurs, especially given her delivery in this particular moment, but it's not there for levity. The scene is tense, and it then leads us to the climax of the film. There are several sequences in this horror that are designed to make you very uncomfortable, as I said before, and not only with the cinematography, but the content too. There are rapid-fire images that are shown, sometimes overlaid on each other, blurring in and out of focus, and these are meant to illustrate what a character is feeling. And I think it's effective in doing so because the scenes transition from something expected into something nightmare-inducing. And the imagery is such that it can make us question if what we're seeing is real or a hallucination, or maybe even a combo of both. As odd and maybe even off-putting as these scenes are, they all work to reinforce the theme that's woven throughout the story. Now, when the film ended, there were audible expressions of confusion from some of the audience. But for me, I took away the massive social commentary that's present throughout. Now, this isn't a cautionary tale. I received it as a scathing criticism of the elite and then their wanton disregard for responsibility that can accompany great wealth. Cronenberg shows us how flippantly the uber-rich behave, where everything is for sale and nothing's out of reach. And in that world, I mean, he asks the question, if accountability can be purchased, what would somebody do? And that answer is insanely horrifying and troubling. Now, there is a bit of a pacing issue towards the third act where the film feels like it's wrapping up only to continue on. While the story needs to continue for a compelling and satisfying narrative, this false finale, it did make me feel the time. And it's not a long movie. I mean, it's just short of 2 hours. Honestly, though, outside of that moment where I thought it was wrapping up, the time did fly by efficiently. Now, I can see how this movie is not going to be for everybody, and it may not even be for most. I mean, the imagery, it's incredibly disturbing, showcasing morphing images and actions to become something that borders on the profane. And the message, it could be difficult to discern, especially when what's being shown becomes extreme. But the acting is superb, giving us characters that show us a progression in mindsets and behaviors. And they may not always be positive, but there is movement in the personalities. Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgard deliver some raw and intimate performances that can make you wince, smirk, squirm, and even stare slack-jawed at the screen. And while the story is somewhat straightforward, the messaging is what's deep and complex, pushing this film past good to great. Now, I'm so glad that I went into this completely blind, and I'm actually going to try and do that more often if I can. The surprise of the story, regardless of how twisted or disturbing it might be, it made this enjoyable because I never knew what to expect from the story. There is a ton of sex and nudity, a lot of profanity, and a bunch of gnarly and visceral violence. I give Infinity Pool 4.5 out of 5 couches. So, have you seen this one? What'd you think of it? I'm curious if you enjoyed the insanity or if it just didn't work for you. Either way, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.